Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're recording. So, hi everyone. Okay. I am going to screen share as soon as I can find it. Why is everything all different than it usually is? All right. Don't mind me. I'm just trying to figure this out along with everyone else. Share screen. There we go. You'll see my 5 million tabs I have open at once on my computer. All right. I need to go here. I had it open, but all my other stuff is up there. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. So, Homeschool 101. So this would normally be in person at the church, but COVID had something to say about that. So we're not doing that this year. All right. So I think if I hit enter, okay. So those weird unsocialized homeschoolers and other myths debunked. Someone actually shared a really funny picture in the SALT board chat, and it was a picture of a kid that were just kind of like crazy like face, and it said, and overnight everyone was a weird unsocialized homeschooler. It made me laugh. All right. So, but I'm not a teacher. I'm not qualified to do this. This is one of my favorite myths because I am a teacher. And I can tell you 100% that learning how to be a teacher in no way at all prepared me to be a homeschooling mom. Being a teacher prepared me how to manage a room full of children. There were certain times in our training where we did learn specific skills in teaching certain subjects, but it was so far and few between. The majority of teachers' training is on classroom management. I would say probably somewhere around 90% is behavior and classroom management. So as a homeschool mom, you don't need to have classroom management. And the behavior management you learn as a teacher doesn't really apply to your own kids, because I can use every teacher trick I have in my bag and they don't work on my own kids. It's a whole different ballgame when you're dealing with your own children. So that is something that is it's just not the case. God chose you to be your child's parent. So if you are feeling called to homeschool, God is also choosing you to be their teacher. And you just kind of have to trust that. I found this quote that I loved to kind of go along with this. A teaching degree is to homeschooling as a culinary degree is to grandma's cooking. It just cannot touch the love, care, and personal standard that only she can stir in. And there's just something about a meal prepared by your grandmother or by your mom. Like, there may be something that you have at a restaurant that's just exceptional because it's something exceptional, but it doesn't compare to whatever that thing is that your grandma made that will never taste the same again, no matter how many times you try to follow her recipe. And that is what homeschooling is compared to teaching. So Christina or Stephanie, do either of you have anything to add in specifically to that concept?
Danica. She's on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Christina. We can't hear you.
Uh-oh, sorry.
Okay, now there you are.
I was just going to say that, like you, I have the same teaching degree, and nothing could have prepared me for what it's like to be a homeschool mom. Good or bad, I'm not saying it either of those ways, but agree 1000%. A degree doesn't mean anything in this life at all. Like, not even at all.
Okay, so as the one who is not a teacher, I was scared to death. I was like the C student, and I did not like school growing up. I went to all private schools and probably 3 years of college. Didn't finish because of math, like literally because of math. So I researched all the way through college level when she was in first grade, because I was that scared to start homeschooling. And I wanted to make sure if it was something I continued to do, which was only supposed to be a year, but if it was something that I continued to do, that I knew what the heck I was doing and I was not going to screw her up. So I'm thankful to say she tests well above grade level, and I haven't screwed her up yet. So you can do it. You just have to find your own way. You know, everybody has a different way of doing it. And I think that's the difference.
I always tell everyone, to your point, Stephanie, I always tell everyone, if you love your child with everything that you've been given, you can't screw this up. Like, no one knows your child better than you do. So that's always my advice that I give to everyone. Anyway.
I agree. I concur. Okay, so moving on to myth number 2. But I have to teach 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many kids. I'm not qualified to do this. And I would say very similarly to the previous, that I'm not qualified to do this. You're the mom, so you are. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I think of that a lot when it comes to homeschooling. I'm now homeschooling all 3 of the kids fairly successfully, I would say. Last year was the first year that I had all 3 of them home with me, but I think the key is recognizing that the younger ones are capable of more than you realize that they're capable of. And if you teach to the older ones and you do a lot of things together, the younger ones are going to pick up on it. We did a plant unit study this year as an example, and one of the things I wanted to integrate into that was the idea of photosynthesis and what that meant, because Lucas had never encountered that idea before, really. So Lucas is my oldest. He was in 3rd grade at the time. So I did a whole section on photosynthesis for also the younger 2. Olivia's only in kindergarten. And when we were done with that unit study, I could hand her a paper showing, without words, just the visual of photosynthesis, and she could explain it to me. She might not have remembered specifically the word glucose or exactly how the process happened, but she knew enough to have a foundation of what was happening. So that way, when she encounters that same idea when she's older, she's going to have that foundation of what that meant, and it's going to mean even more to her because she's going to be able to make those connections to what she learned in the past. So I think the key for teaching multiple children is, especially for science and history, to do it together as a family. And that's one of the cool things, is when you do it together as a family, you have an opportunity to have this shared experience. And, you know, say you're learning about Florida history and you learn all about Florida history as a family. As a family, you can go on a field trip on a vacation to St. Augustine, and it's a field trip for the whole family that's meaningful because of the educational experience they had relating to it. And not also taking advantage of independent time and recognizing that they don't need you to hold their hand through the entire day, through every process. Building good habits and good study habits, good work habits, good cleanliness habits, it's key to your sanity as a mom, and to them. You want them to just not be good students. You want them to be good people, and you want them to be productive members of a family and of a society as they get older. And by giving them an opportunity to be independent, they're learning all of those skills at a young age. It takes years to develop them, but it's something that can help your homeschool be even more successful when they do have that opportunity to have ownership over their own work. So, anything else, anyone?
I also want to say, like, I always add to everyone when anyone asks me, well, I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do that. And I always say, well, you didn't know how to have a baby, and you didn't know how to raise them. You didn't know how to teach them how to walk, and you didn't know how to teach them how to talk, and you didn't know how to teach them how to feed themselves, and you didn't know how to teach them how to go potty. But you did all of that. And that's what homeschooling is.
Right.
And we forget that we are equipped to be the parents of these children. And with that equipment that God gives you, we are equipped to teach them through academics as well. So,
right. Sorry, I didn't mean to move on, but
no, sorry.
Go ahead, Stephanie. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, I think that brings up the old school method of schooling was the old schoolhouse. They were all in one room.
Yeah.
In fact, when my older daughter was in public school, at one point they tried doing 2 classes together, and she was in the younger one. And I said the same thing. I think this is great because she's going to absorb all of that older stuff. So I think that's good to do it all together. I don't have that issue though.
Right. I agree. And there was a reason why that was a successful model for education. There's a lot of schools now that do that very intentionally because of the benefit for the older and the younger kids. They give the example of playing catch a lot of times. So if you have 2 4-year-olds, they can't play catch because neither one of them have the physical ability to really have control over where the ball goes and to catch the ball the proper way. But if a 4-year-old is playing catch with a 10-year-old, the 10-year-old can adjust how they're playing to accommodate for the lack of skill that the 4-year-old has. And by playing with the 4-year-old, the 10-year-old is learning his skill even more because he's having to adjust for someone with the less skill. He's learning leadership. And the 4-year-old is learning the skill of how to play catch. And he has a mentor, someone who's older. And that same concept can be applied to any anything at all that we do with our kids. And I see that as one of the biggest benefits of homeschooling, but I'm going to hold that thought because we're going to get to that in a little bit. So this is one of my favorites. So homeschoolers are socially awkward nerds who sit at home all day whittling and reading passages from their King James Version Bible. Is this everyone's version of a homeschool family, right? Like that's what we think of a homeschool family. I have a question real quick. Do you guys see me moving this thing back and forth?
No.
Okay, you just see my screen. You don't see the little sidebar? Good.
No.
Okay, good to know. All right. So this is not us. I think anyone who watches this that knows any one of us knows that this is not us. This is an antiquated notion of homeschooling. And it's something that I would hope at this point in our society requires very little other than us just laughing at this photo because we recognize that this is not the majority of homeschool families. It's just not. It's not the way that it works anymore. This is one of my favorite ones. I think this one's hilarious. Of all of these types of memes, this is the one that I have found to be the most accurate. My favorite one is what the government thinks I do. Just makes me laugh. But you know, it's just one of those things that homeschooling is what you make of it, and you just have to recognize the benefit and trust yourself in what you're doing. This is a big one, and it's a big concern for people. What about college? How will they function in the quote unquote real world? So first of all, for college, right? As a homeschooler, going back to our previous point of trying to raise our kids to have good study habits, work habits, and being independent learners, isn't that what college is all about? I was a student who I memorized, I had like that picture memory, so I would visualize my textbook. I would remember these conversations with my teachers, and even if it was an essay test, like I just knew how to take the test to do well. So school for me was so easy. There was no challenge at all. I personally didn't really care at all about anything I was learning in high school. So I just kind of skirted through, no big deal. I got to college and my world was rocked. And it was because I had really poor study habits and I didn't really know how to manage my time well because I never had to manage my time well. I could go off and hang out with my friends and do whatever I wanted all week long and still be able to pass that test on Friday and not worry about it. So I think homeschoolers are set up to be successful in college because of the nature of homeschooling and the variety of work that they have, the ownership over their work that they have, the study skills that we instill in them. And as a result, that's how they function in the real world. Homeschooling is better preparation for the real world than public school, in my opinion. if you look at the structure of what
Well,
a
and
job
they
looks like.
socialize.
Right. Go ahead, Stephanie. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on this?
They socialize and school with kids of all ages. So we go on field trips where they're at a museum and they're learning about history, but they're learning with all different kids and many adults. So they're learning to function with different personalities and different people from all different areas. I always tell people that Sedona, if she went to school, would have friends in her 3-mile radius of her school and her church. But because she's homeschooled, her friends range probably a 60-mile radius all around.
Right.
So we have farm friends and city friends and suburban friends. Well, you're learning all different messages from those experiences.
Right. Absolutely.
So that, of course, helps.
Right, for sure. Christina, do you have anything you want to add to this particular topic?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, I mean, I have lots, but
yes,
no.
I know. Stephanie, I did such a wonderful job that you're going to just
Yes.
leave it as that. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, functioning in the real world. Not to mention the fact that one other thing is that homeschoolers, because their schooling takes less time, as they get older, they have an opportunity to actually function in the real world sooner, because they can go out and they can get internships and they can get jobs and they can be volunteering and be interacting in offices and on farms and in a variety of different places that other kids may not have an opportunity to do.
Actually, I will add
Okay.
one little thing.
Yes.
Sorry.
You're good.
You were talking about functioning in the real world. I wasn't going to relate it to college, but I was going to relate it to like life right now. And because, you know, our school days are all day long. They're not, you know, subjected to like 7 hours in a building. We get done with our academics within a few hours, and then we live in the real world. And my children have much more higher level conversations in the real world. The other day they were talking about Eric the Red and exploring explorers with another family. And then the other day my son was talking about the Emancipation Proclamation and the things that are happening in the world. And these are conversations that my 9-year-old is having now. And I just feel that because we are reading with our kids and having these everyday interactions, they have more opportunities for real world application.
Right.
So
awesome. Homeschooling is just doing school at home. So I'm kind of laughing thinking of a post that went into a Facebook page that I'm an administrator on today, trying to just increase some interaction with the families. I asked people to share their homeschool space that they do homeschool in, and there were 2 answers that I loved more than any other. One was a mom who posted a picture of a globe and said, "The world is our school."
I like that one.
And the other was Stephanie, and she posted an album that she shared from her page that she manages, that I'll let her at the end share a little bit about that, so if anyone's interested in checking that out. But the album was a picture of her daughter doing school pretty much in every physical way possible, laying on the floor, laying in bed, sitting on the stairs, sitting at a table. She might have even been under a table at some point, out at the pool, in the hotel, in the car. Homeschooling is not just doing school at home. Homeschooling is a lifestyle. Homeschooling is recognizing every single teachable moment that occurs and embracing it and using it. Homeschooling happens wherever your family is. And that is the beauty of it, is that you don't have to just be sitting at home. You can be out and about and living life and doing things, and your kids are learning through those experiences and through whatever activities you're giving them in the journey that you're on. And homeschooling can also happen at home, sitting at a desk. If if that's what they want to be doing. Because sometimes my kids like to just sit at the table and do their book work there. But sometimes they like to be out and exploring and catching frogs. And I don't even know what they do out there, but that's their business, not mine. But that's the beauty of homeschool. It's the world is our school. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. Stephanie, would you like to share a little bit maybe about the travels you guys have been on, like how you guys have utilized that as your school?
Well, first I'd like to mention something about that point. Before I started homeschooling, I found out later I was actually homeschooling Sedona, not intentionally, okay? And one day my mother-in-law said these words to me, and I posted it on my page just the other day. She said, not everything has to be something she learns. She can just play. And this was when she was probably 3 or 4. And I thought, that is the silliest thing I've ever heard. Because at her age, everything is a learning experience. Everything is an opportunity to learn. So I was already doing all of this, but I didn't even know I was doing it until some people actually approached me and said, you're doing this. So anyway, yes, we do a lot of travel and a ton of field trips. In fact, a good example of the field trips, how many we do, when COVID hit, we had just finished an Orlando field trip for a couple days, and that was March 11th. So our school year starts June 1st. From June 1st, 2019 to March 11th, 2020, I went back and counted 53 field trips that we had done.
Wow.
And it includes a variety of things. It might be a park day or a beach day, but it's a lot of museums and just tours and places to go and things to see, a lot of travel experiences. But I looked back and went, okay, she'll be fine for a couple months. Like she's done enough. She won't die. But I like to make a unit study around things. And one of them was like the state of Florida. 4th and 5th grade, they do the state of Florida history. So we had done St. Augustine, we had done Tallahassee, we have done the Port of Tampa, the Tampa History Museum. I can't even remember what else, but there was a whole long list of things that we did. Those were all places we went. Sure, we read some things, but where we went and what we did and what she saw was much more meaningful in every way. So, but that's how we teach. I'm very eclectic. I am very strict about written work, but we also do a lot of experience-based learning, whether it's here or somewhere else.
Right. And I love that. And like you said, what you experience sticks with you. It becomes a part of who you are when you travel and when you see things with your own eyes. Like it's not just this concept that you're reading about. It becomes working knowledge that you have. You can talk about the process of how farmers get milk out of a cow and it ends up in a bottle, and you can read a book about it, and that's amazing and that's a great thing. Or you could go to a working dairy farm and actually physically see it happening and watch the process and hear the sounds and smell the smells and see the sights and touch the cows. And that's how you're really that's how it becomes a part of who you are. Yeah.
That, Kim, is everything what you just said right there.
That's how
Sorry, I just wanted to point that out. That's so important, because you can read all day long out of a textbook or out of a book, but until you experience that, that's not living the life of homeschooling, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, 100%. So I'm going to get into a couple things. So this is one of the biggest things that I hear from moms when they're considering pulling out of public school and becoming a homeschooler. What about running errands? What about doctor's appointments? What about me time? Well, right now it doesn't matter because those things don't happen. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. That was a COVID joke. The key word is intentional. you have to be intentional about scheduling those things. You don't just have 5 hours every weekday to go do those things. You have to be intentional. Errands is a learning experience for your kids. If your kids are old enough to be a part of what errands you're running, that's part of school, is that you have to do these things that maybe you don't want to do. And running errands is one of them. Doctor's appointments, they can sit in the waiting room, and depending on what the doctor appointment is, there's plenty of doctor's appointments. There's one doctor I won't take my kids to, and y'all know what that one is, I'm sure. But the rest of them, there's not, they can just go like and sit in the waiting room or sit right down the hallway. I had a really good experience with my doctors not caring. My kids were so good. I had to go see a physical therapist for a while, and every single staff member there at one point or another said, like, your kids are welcome to come anytime. They are so good. And we don't just tell people that, like, know that they are so well behaved. But reach out into your community. Like, homeschooling is a huge community. If you need time alone, if you need to schedule a doctor appointment you just don't want your kids to go to, if your kids are little and they can't sit still and behave in a doctor's office, that's what your community is for. You know, reach out and ask a friend if you have family in town. Like, you just kind of have to really make it a point to do those things. Make sure your husband is aware of your need for that, and make it a point to go out on dates, and make it a point to get away when you need to, even if it's just like he gets home from work and you need to just like go to Target and drink a Starbucks and walk around. Like, make that time intentional. Christine or Stephanie, do you guys have any kind of tips on how you manage to find time for yourself in the middle of your homeschool insanity? Do you have something?
Well,
go ahead.
Prior to COVID, I was very blessed that my mother-in-law took my boys 2 days a week. So we would school in the mornings, and then she would take them on Friday afternoons, and she would, take them into the evening and sometimes overnight. So that was a huge blessing for me because we travel a lot for sports. So when she was able to do that, it was nice. But now, things aren't as, with COVID, obviously, things aren't as available, meaning overnights and those kinds of things. So we still utilize, family for times during the day when I need a break, or because they learn from, grandparents, and they learn from family. And we forget that we think that as moms, we feel like sometimes that I don't know anybody else, but for me, sometimes I forget that other people have offerings for my kids outside of myself. Like, Dad took my boys to work the other day, and that was, that's been since March since they've been gone. So that was really exciting for me. But for them too, so just utilizing people around you that are blessing your family with gifts that you forget that are available, if that makes any sense.
Makes total sense. How about you, Stephanie? What advice do you have?
I'm probably in a weird position because Sedona almost literally could be my grandchild. So I have the two older ones who are 27 and 23. And I was home with all of them. I didn't homeschool them. But I appreciate her in such a different way than I appreciated being home with them, that I don't care. I'm not a mom who's ever like, oh, I got to go out with my friends. I mean, I'll go. Like, if you invite me, I might go, but I'm not looking for it. I don't feel like I need it personally. I mean, it's just me. Yeah. And because I take her to the store, and this happens all the time. We will be walking into the store to buy groceries, and I'll look at her and I'll say, I just love spending my day with you. And I do. I love listening to her read her schoolwork or doing her work with her and going places. She rarely bothers me, but she's also an easy kid, and she's 1.
Yeah.
So I'm a little different.
She's a good girl. She is.
Yes,
Yeah. I mean, I know when the kids were younger, like it was a whole different thing, you know, when they were little versus we're kind of getting, my youngest is 6 and she's the girl, so she's a little more mature than where the boys were when they were 6. And she's also the youngest, so she's kind of, you know, she's the youngest of, you know, in a homeschool family. Like I joke around that Olivia did kindergarten when she was 3. Like it's just a different ball game. But I think it's important for us to find that community for ourselves, so that way when we do need that time, we're able to get it. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Homeschool moms are super special magic unicorn moms with extra reserves of patience and time and sanity.
I'm sorry.
I am not special. I'm just gonna say it. I yell at my kids. I do. I yell at my kids a lot. I lose my patience a lot. I do not have any extra reserve of any of those things. If anything, I have less than a lot of other people that I know of all of those things. And it's like being a mom, right? So being a mom, you'll be hard pressed to find a mom who says, I wish I didn't have these kids because it's too hard. Moms don't say that. Our kids are a blessing and we love them, even though they're the reason why we don't have patience or time or sanity. God blessed us with them and we appreciate them for that. And that being a homeschool mom is no different. It's not an easy journey, but it's worth it. Just like being a mom, it just adds one more layer onto mom. That's all it does. It's not, we're not any different. We're not special. We're following a calling. And that's really all it comes down to.
I tell people, when people say to me all the time, oh, I just don't have the patience for that. And I'm like, yeah, me either. I'm just honest. And I say, I don't have the patience either. But, you know, these children were gifted to me. They're gifts, right? And it's my job to secure those gifts, if that makes an understanding. But it's my job to secure those gifts and to teach them the way that, you know, God wants them to be raised. And whether I yell or I scream, and I get to humble myself in front of my kids all the time. What wonderful teachable moments do I have to offer my kids when I make a mistake and I come to them and I say, you know, that wasn't right. And what could I have done to, you know, make this experience better for all of us? When they make mistakes, when I make mistakes, because they can't learn if I'm perfect all the time, right?
Right.
They have to learn through my mistakes, and they have to see humility, and they have to see the grace of God, and they have to see, you know, forgiveness and love, and they also have to see anger and working through those frustrations. I mean, and I think that's been a benefit for us in our home.
Yeah, I agree completely. Our children are holy sandpaper, right? God uses them to rub off the parts of us that need to be rubbed off. They're just one more tool that he's using to get us to the point where he needs us to be. Those of us with more than one child know some of them are a different grit than others. But they are all there. And you know, our kids, in homeschooling your kids and them being with you all the time, they help to bring out our flaws in a way that forces us to work on them. I know for myself that has been a big lesson that I have learned through homeschooling, is the things in myself that I needed to work on, that maybe if I did send them off to school and didn't have this time with them, maybe that never would have happened. I don't know, but it's where we are now. Well, okay, here we are. The S word, socialization. So I looked up socialization in the dictionary, and every definition that I read reminded me of what you would do with a dog. Like seriously, I'm not trying to make fun, because I know that for myself, when we were starting this journey, Chris and I equally were concerned about socialization and what that would mean for our kids and what it would look like as a homeschooling family. And so I'm not poking fun to poke fun. I'm poking fun at myself just as much, because now that I'm on the other side of homeschooling, I see that that's just, it's the least of your concern as a homeschooler, is socialization. If anything, especially in our area, there are so many opportunities for doing things that you have to pick and choose. It's too much. Like, you cannot do everything. If you would spend all day not doing school every day. So,
which a lot of families do that, actually. They unschool and they just
yes,
legit go into
and that's
things.
fine too. Like, that totally works. There are moms who are extroverts and want to be out all the time and doing things all of the time and engaged in things all of the time. And there's moms who are introverts and have to really be intentional in taking the time to build those relationships for their kids. There's 2 points with socialization that I really like to try to make for people that are looking in this journey or new to this journey or are contemplating this journey. The one thing with socialization is, it kind of goes back to Stephanie's point that she made earlier about the variety of friends that they have as homeschoolers, not just geographically, like she mentioned, which was something I never really thought of before, Stephanie. It's so true, that your kids could be friends with people from all over the place and not just your neighborhood. But it's also by age. So my boys are only 2 years apart. We have a lot of friends that are friends with both of them. There's one little boy in particular that I can think of. He's an only child. He's actually older than my oldest child. But if you were to ask him who his friends are in the Hannon family, he'd say, oh, Lucas and Jacob. It wouldn't even faze him to think that because Jacob was so much younger than him, he wasn't his friend.
Right.
And if you were to ask Jacob, he would equally agree that this child is his friend. And I think that's something pretty unique to homeschoolers, where the lines of age are blurred in a way that honestly is natural. I mean, because I think about friends that I have friends who are 10 years or more older than me and 10 years or more younger than me. I remember someone posted something and it was like, how old will you be in 10 years, whatever it was, and how old will your kids be? And someone posted, and I'm like, wait a second, in 10 years, you're going to be my age right now. I didn't know you were that young. Like, but as adults, we don't think about that. Like, we're not going to say, oh, how old are you? Oh, I can't be your friend. You're only 28. Like, no, you're too young for me. I can't be your friend. It doesn't work that way. We naturally find ourselves relating to people who we relate to, and that's what true friendship really is. And that's what our kids have in their friends. They get together with a big group of people, a variety of ages, and they play. It doesn't matter if the youngest is 3 and the oldest is 12. They play and they figure it out and they connect. And it's such an organic and natural way to develop relationships that is preparing them for the real world. The other thing with socialization is something that a lot of times people don't think of, but for me, part of it is that my kids are not just quote unquote socializing with kids, they're socializing with other adults.
Yes.
And not just a teacher who's standing in front of their classroom who's there to tell them what to do and to monitor their behavior and to teach them certain skills. They have genuine, true relationships with other adults. It is so important that our kids have that. There is a book called Parenting Beyond Your Capacity. If you're not familiar with it, I highly, highly recommend this book. It's by Reggie Joyner. There's one chapter, if you read one chapter in here, it's like the best. It's called Widening the Circle. So the idea of widening the circle is that when your kids are young, you want to put people in their life who you have the same beliefs as them. You know, you're on the same moral pathway. You have the same beliefs about God and what place that plays in your life. The same beliefs about education and just a variety of different things. And you want your kids to be comfortable with those adults, because there's going to come a time when your kids don't want to come to you anymore because you're their mom, and they don't want to tell you stuff because you're their mom. And when that time comes, we want to make sure that the people who are around our kids, who are going to be pouring into them, who they're going to be comfortable talking to, are people who are going to give them as advice that's as close to the advice that we would give them if it was coming from us. And I don't think I can think of a better opportunity that we have to widen our circle for our kids than to be a part of a homeschooling family, and for our kids to get to know other moms and to be familiar with them and comfortable with them. So it's not just about friendships with other kids, it's about relationships with other parents, moms and dads, because there are a bunch of homeschool dads out there. I know several families, amazing men that I am so blessed that my kids know and that they're comfortable with him, and that it's just a really beautiful thing. And it's something that's very unique in the homeschool world, where it's not just like mom and dad's friends that you see once in a while on a weekend, or people that you see once in a while at church, but these people that they're constantly in their life in a variety of different ways. So socializing is a myth. Yeah, I mean, those are my two big key things with the socializing, is the organic friendships that develop among ages, among geographical regions, just naturally finding your people for our kids, and this widening the circle concept of them having adults that they're comfortable with to pour into them. Stephanie, is there anything specific that you would like to add to this idea of socializing and what it means for homeschoolers?
Oh my gosh. You said so much. My mind is like, woo. I do agree that your kids definitely, having the older kids, it's always good to have other adults that your children are comfortable with, that they can talk to, and make it known that if you can't say something to me, you have people to go to. But socializing, we're all about socializing over here, whether it's out in the field trips or play dates, or now it's all the what do you call it? What are they
Virtual.
on? Whatever they're on now.
Yeah.
Messenger.
And all that. Right. Yes, all that.
All that stuff. So, but lots of socializing in homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Christina, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think we've always had the joke, you and I, Kim, that, part of being socializing is, trying to find time to be home, because there's just so many opportunities.
Right.
You just have to find yourself saying no.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that, because they, again, going back to your picture of the typical, of what people think is the typical homeschool family. So yeah, no, saying no is becoming easier for me, because I used to think myself, I used to be the same person that was like, oh, what about this? What about that? And my son has autism. And so I'm sharing that because that was always a thing that we struggled with. Like, he struggles with friendships and opportunities, and we've got to the point where I had to say, oh my gosh, we're busy like every single day. So just learning how to say no to those social opportunities and be time home to learn, but also knowing that those opportunities are there for when they're needed.
Right. And I think it's really important for us as homeschoolers, because it would be very easy to fall into a trap where you are just home, if that's where your comfort level is. Because I do know a lot of homeschool moms that are self-declared introverts, and they would be fine being home all day with their kids,
Yeah.
and just staying home all day. So I think finding a community is super, super important. And we live in an area that we're blessed with a really awesome homeschool community, whether you are part of an official co-op where you get together as families and do things, or if you're in a co-op where there's classes and your kids go to classes, whatever that looks like for you, find your community, and try to be a part of that. You know, I tell people all the time, I run a local homeschool group called SALT, and one of the things that people have asked about this year specifically is, do we have a mandatory attendance policy? Just with COVID, and people don't really know what their comfort level is going to be with attending events. And there's not a mandatory attendance policy, because I think the people who buy into the idea of community and recognize the importance are going to make it an effort to not just be at scheduled events, but to reach out into the lives of the people that are around them and plan things on their own on the side. You know, like maybe a mom, like Sedona may connect with someone that's new in the group this year, and Stephanie is the kind of mom that would intentionally reach out to that family and be like, hey, Sedona really liked hanging out with your daughter.
Right.
Let's go meet at the beach and hang out, and I'm going to invite some other friends. Why don't you invite some other friends? And then next thing you know, there's this group of like 10, 15 kids that might otherwise not have really gotten to know each other, that are having this really cool, fun day at the beach together and having this shared experience. And for us as moms too, to have that opportunity to be able to talk to other homeschool moms, because we're the ones who understand what it is like. You know, we've talked about all of the positive things with homeschooling, and there are many, and there's many benefits of homeschooling that we didn't even talk about. But it's hard, you know, there's days when it's hard, and there's days when you need to talk to somebody who understands how hard it is. So to have your own relationships with other homeschool moms is really important, even if it's just one other family that comes over, and while the kids swim, you sit on the couch and watch them swim and just talk to each other. And to take that time for yourself to develop those relationships is super, super important. So I just really encourage those who are seeing this to really figure out what that's going to look like for you this year. Everyone has a different idea this year of what that needs to look like for their family, so that they can stay safe in the midst of the craziness that's happening. But I would really encourage you to figure out where your safe zone is with getting together with others, and really making sure that you're doing that. Community is key to homeschooling. It really is. And sometimes your community is really, really big, and you have a lot of different groups of people and a lot of different places where you go, and and sometimes it's just a small group of 2 or 3 families that share an educational philosophy with you, that you focus on those things for your kids in those times. And sometimes it's both. And the best thing that you can do in this season is to find those things for yourselves and for your kids, and to really just, I would say to anyone who's new to homeschooling, especially this year, because man, I give you a lot of credit, because this is not an easy year to be starting this journey, because those of us who are in leadership and planning things, I mean, Stephanie, you know this too, it's hard. I call places to book stuff, and they're like, I don't know, we might be open then. We might be able to take 30. We might be able to take 100. I don't know. Call back later when it gets closer. So it's a really hard time. The biggest advice that I've been giving people, I've been on the phone with people every day wanting to talk about homeschooling, and give yourself grace, because this year and any first year of homeschooling, it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. It's just not. And it's okay that it doesn't. It's okay if that textbook goes unfinished. It's okay if that textbook ends up sitting on your desk and never gets picked up. It's okay if you have a ton of plans that get thrown out the window. It's okay if you scheduled a ton of field trips that you decide you're not comfortable going on. It's okay if you're going out and seeing other people when others around you are judging you for that. It is okay. Whatever you choose for your family, just give yourself grace and follow the natural rhythms of your family, and reach out and find your community. Those are like the 3 key things that I would say. Show yourself grace, figure out the natural rhythm of your family, and find your community. And if you do those 3 things, and this is truly where God is leading your family, you'll be successful if you follow those things.
You know, I just want to add to that.
Please do.
I would say, number 1, every day is not easy, but every day is worth it. And I always remind myself of that, because there's not easy days. And when there's not an easy day, walk away from it, because who do you have to prove anything to? You know, you have nobody to hand over the paperwork to tomorrow. So if everybody's having a bad day, take a break, go outside, do something else, take a day or 2 off. It's not going to kill anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that I had one other thing. I can't remember what it was, but I'll remember in a minute.
Yeah.
Those are the 2.
While you're thinking, you reminded me. So I have a story that I like to share with people about when Lucas was in kindergarten. Being a teacher, I had a very different vision of what kindergarten needed to look like than what I should have. So I tried to force a classroom on my 4-year-old, very active little boy. And I remember very clearly we were having one of those days and we were just not getting through the math lesson. He was not having it. And I was getting so frustrated. He ended up crying out of frustration. And I ended up crying out of frustration. And I felt terrible that it got to that point. And I said, you know what, buddy? Forget it. Let's go. We have woods behind our house that he'd been wanting to make a trail in. I'm like, let's go get those daddy's tools. We're going to go build that trail. And we spent the rest of the day until we had to go pick the little ones up from preschool. We spent that entire day out in the woods building this trail. And that was when he was in kindergarten. And I still so clearly remember every detail of that experience, like what we were arguing over and the feeling that I had and looking at him being frustrated. And then how quickly we were able to turn that around. And what started as one of the worst days we've ever had as a homeschool family turned into one of the most precious memories that I have with him. And it was all because the focus was on the relationship, not on the curriculum.
You're making me cry.
So like Stephanie said, like it is okay to shut the book and walk away. As a classroom teacher, I can tell you that not once in all of my years in the classroom did we ever finish a book.
No, they didn't.
Ever. So you are not going to finish the book, and it is okay. It is okay.
Thank you for saying that.
She thought of it. What? Yes, good.
I thought of it. That was the other thing. You only have to be 1 chapter ahead. Somebody told me that when I first started homeschooling, and I don't know who it was, but that is the best advice ever, especially for someone like me who is relearning 6th grade math every step of the way. But you know what? You only have to be that 1 chapter ahead, or sometimes I'm just a page or 2 ahead and getting out videos. But that's the best advice I ever got, because people think you have to be a teacher. You have to know everything. You don't have to know everything. You have to know where to find everything.
Right.
And who to ask or where to find it. That's all you need.
Absolutely.
So
that's good. I'll have to remember that this year, because we're doing ancient history this year. And in my process of preparing for that, I'm realizing that I do not remember a thing about ancient history. I remember that there were mummies and that there were pyramids and that there was a guy named King Tut. And that is all that I remember about ancient Egypt. But that's okay, because I'm going to learn alongside them, and we're going to discover some really cool things together. And it's going to be a really fun year of discovery, not just for them, but for me too. And that's part of the fun of homeschooling too, is learning along with your kids and having these experiences and these aha moments that you get to have alongside with them. But All right. Well, I don't want this to go on I don't want to make this too long because I want people to be able to really watch this and enjoy this. As far as like the curriculum side, that could be a whole nother Zoom meeting. So maybe we'll discuss the possibility of doing that and sharing, maybe doing a little snapshot of our day type thing and sharing a little bit more about what exactly a homeschool day looks like. But I think that just getting through those myths and really focusing on the socialization and community aspect of it, and just kind of sharing our top key points is super important. Christina, would you like to close us out, since this is your baby right here? So is there anything that you would like to share with everybody before we close out?
No, I'm just honestly grateful that you took the time, both of you, to share your experience. There's so many new families out here that have so many questions and don't understand how we do what we do. And you both are building these amazing opportunities for families. Kim with, obviously with SALT, and Stephanie with GASA. It's GASA, am I saying that right? GASA.
Yeah.
I don't know. But either way, my point is I'm just so happy that we have you in our local community, and that people are able to see that it's not scary, this world that we live in. It's not, and it doesn't need to be a 7-hour day. So it can be full of life and full of experience. So thank you both.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just would like to say to anyone who would like more information about either SALT or Stephanie's group that she runs, GASA, if you go to Facebook and search for the group Homeschooling in Trinity and Beyond, you can find information about both of those things in that page. Homeschooling in Trinity and Beyond is a Facebook page that is run by the Board of SALT, but it is open to everyone in Trinity and Beyond who homeschools, just to kind of share some information about what's happening in our little corner of Tampa Bay, and to share resources to be beneficial to you on your journey. So if you're not already in that Facebook page, go ahead and check us out there. So thank you everyone for your time tonight, and we'll be talking to y'all soon.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Happy homeschooling, everyone.
Yes, you too.